Anish. Please, let's welcome Anish. And let's have some energy before we close out with our next few panels.
Hi there. Yeah, thingy. So full disclosure, I went to med school. I'm a medical doctor to start with, okay? So when I talk about things, and if I sound like a doctor, that's because I was one. Then I went to grad school to do crypto, okay? So this talk is, why is this thing not making any move? Yeah. Oh, okay, hold on. Do I go back? Right, okay. So this is a three-part story, right? One part story is I have spare time interested in existential risk. I do research with a bunch of my friends. Some of them are in well-known institutes. One of them is Anders Sandberg. So we wrote a paper like 10 years ago on hybrid risk. And then when we had this DIAC thing happening in Switzerland, I was invited to give a talk. I went back to my paper and updated it. I looked at what has happened, and I said, you know, there are a few things that can happen. So this is what happened. 4 weeks ago, I literally gave a talk, and you can look it up. It's on Twitter. Full disclosure. So this is where when you can call me out kind of situation, right? So I said two things. The first thing I said was like this bit, okay? At that point in time, the thing on the left, my left, right? I don't know which left is this. So my left was the previous one, and the right one is that happened afterwards, right? What they said was the models in Anthropic at that point in time, they considered it level 2. And I was describing in the world of hybrid risk, where you can have multiple paths to the same destiny, your probability is summed up. So if you assume it to be level 2, it's likely to be level 3, okay? So that's what I said. I think like, how many days? 20 seconds. 10 days later, 11th is the day I gave the talk. 11 days later, they actually updated the thing from level 2 to level 3. And the other thing I said was, you know, when you look at hybrid risk, the thesis of the risk is that LLMs are a real paradigm shifter, a game changer, right? There will be very, very soon possibilities of 0 days. I'm sure everybody knows 0 days, right? Okay, all right. At least I show some hand. Effectively, that's like a vulnerability to an existing operating system or an application not known to anybody. You don't have a patch against it. That's a 0 day. And there are markets available for that. And I said, you know, LLMs will do this. And I think that happened in like 2 weeks' time. Like literally somebody else posted a blog post saying, you know, I used O3, I found this bug. And why am I saying this? The reason I'm saying this is because, you know, hybrid risks are one of the risks that we seem to be not spending enough of time to understand it and not spending enough of time to actually build defenses against it, okay? So, you know, let's take 2. I'm not doing very complicated stuff, right? I'm promising you I wouldn't do all my 5 fingers. I'm only going to go up to 3, okay? You start with 1, we go to 2, we go to 3. And by 3, you'll be all convinced that hybrid risk is a real risk. And I'm pretty sure you could add, you know, more fingers on my hands and toes, and you know it'll become terrible, right? The thing here is just to give you an intuition of why the mechanisms we currently have are not really that good. I mean, in fact, I could quote Yesh, because Yesh was talking about a bunch of things that I could take as an example, right? Literally, I could give you an example of COVID, right? Very good example. Literally, I could look at this and give you the biorisk thing, right? It is a biorisk in one sense of speaking. If I am being a bit cynical and a conspiracy theorist, that is a case of biorisk. Somebody tried to sequence something and something came out of the other end, right? And can you imagine a world where LLMs could do that? It's very close, not very far. And what do we need to do? Do we have mechanisms in place if such a thing happens? And this is a question that I wanted everybody to think. And I am proposing, like, since the last talk, it really bothered me. Like, literally, I was just giving a talk as a talk. And like in 10 days, like a friend of mine sends me a message saying, bro, did you see what happened? I said, what? Oh, you know, Anthropic updated it. And then I go, really? And then in a couple of days later, he sends me another message on Telegram saying, dude, did you see that one? Somebody did a discovery, malware discovery. I'm like, okay, now I need to take this seriously. Until now, it was fun. Look, literally it was fun. Just a paper. The story of the paper is like, I used to live in the UK. I used to go to Oxford during weekends. I used to hang out with all the people in Future Humanities Institute. One day we had this strange conversation over coffee. Can we actually break the security protocol that was existing by Homeland Security? And I said, we shouldn't really look at one vector. We should look at multiple vectors. So we came up with 2 vectors. That's what I said, starting from 1 to 2, right? And that was the paper, original paper with me and Anders. Anders wrote it up. By the time I got home, he already had it there. And then, when I was invited to the talk, what happens? I go, you know what? Since I last gave a thought on a talk, this has happened, right? It's a true paradigm shifter. It really changed the game, right? If we were to add this to the mix, can this really shift it? And the answer to that, the immediate answer to that was yes, okay? And I have to give full disclosure, I didn't spend like hours and hours and hours like what do you do when you publish research papers. This was literally like I spent probably 2 days in the whole thing, thinking about the paper, updating it, thinking it back, like that's what it is, right? And I came up with this. And I came up with enough of hybrid risk that already 2 of them went through as yes, yes, okay? And if that's the case, we have a significant risk. And what is the problem, right? This is the problem, right? So you have to think of this with an adversarial perspective. You have attackers, and you are the defender. We as humanity are defending. When you have an adversary who is attacking and you are defending, you are already at a disadvantage. An attacker only has to succeed once, whereas a defender has to succeed every time to actually keep the state, okay? So here's the problem. I asked you about the zero-day vulnerabilities and why is it relevant? If you look at the zero-day vulnerabilities and how much time it takes normally in the wild to actually get fixed, that's the median over there, okay? I don't think it has a thingy. Sorry, guys, it doesn't have a pointer. So if you can't see it, but like I'm very, you get the intuition, right? Never, ever does all the vulnerabilities that I found are ever going to be fixed. And if you were to wear a hat of a virus, just imagine yourself to be a virus. You want to infect people. You know the set of all humanity has some vulnerabilities. Imagine that the people who are vulnerable has a cross on it. And out of 10 people, if you have more than 5 people in the 10 have a cross on it, your optimization function, your survival function is good, right? If it's more than that, you can actually grow further, faster, right? And this is the situation we are having, right? We have a very, very, very broad surface, and the energy requirement to actually defend the whole surface is very high, right? And given AI is really, really fast, the time it takes for us to respond is going to be, I don't know how. So that's what I said, right? So you definitely, definitely need to move the needle from offense to defense. And yeah, I mean, reality is reality. You can think, I can think in, I would say, nation state-wise. So imagine you are a nation state involved in an adversarial situation with another nation state. I am not naming names. Imagine one of them starts with C and another one starts with U. If you are in one of the 2 states, the state that actually has the better of the AI will win in that sense, right? Because you can apply that in that sense. So you have no norms there's no mechanism by which you can actually delay the progress of AI. There's no way you can delay it. Everybody who thinks you could actually delay it actually are deluded in that sense because you are only seeing the tip of the iceberg. Even if you make it, so I'll give you an example. You've heard a lot about stem cell therapies, right? You probably heard a lot about embryo research and things like that. I'm pretty sure you heard about very illegal research that's happened in different parts of the world. If there's an arbitrage to be had, and if it's a nation state, and security is a thing that you're concerned about, all bets are off, right? So that's the first argument. So now, what is it that we can do? We definitely need to actually accelerate certain things, and we need to accelerate the defensive stuff. And how can we actually accelerate this? Okay, so everybody has talked about all the pieces, right? We can't, we can accelerate bits of cryptography, but the adoption of it is the key that you need to accelerate. And the other thing you need to do is okay, when you have an attack, one of the things you have to do is respond fast enough, right? Imagine you had the situation that you have a committee, so I'm just being fictitious, so forgive me for my fictitiousness. So somebody attacks you, you have a committee, the committee has to agree that there's an attack happening. Then the committee has to again agree that we have to respond. I'm pretty sure that the attacker will be done and tested. Like, can you imagine, like, you run a shop, and a robber is coming to break your glass and get in. You have a committee. The committee decides whether, the glass break constitutes a theft. And then the committee then decides whether we should respond or not. I'm sure nowhere in this real world that such a committee exists. But that's the reality where how we are responding to AI. That's the reality in which how we are responding to cyber risk. Okay, so, and the last of the bits is like the more interesting bits, okay? Charlie Munger is the one I like. Okay, I like lots of people who have thought a lot about lots of things, and one of them is Charlie Munger, and he talks about incentives. Show me an incentive, he will say, it's something along the like if you have an incentive, there'll be a result. This is an absolute thing. Humanity, or agents for that matter, if you give them incentives, they will do the right behavior to a largest degree. Okay, now economists in the room, forgive me for saying this. Yes, I am not assuming all humans are rational actors, but to the nearest to that. So, okay, so since we last spoke, almost a month ago, I've been pulling my hair bit by bit. I've been thinking about how could you actually solve some of these problems? Are there ways by which you could actually solve it? So this is a feeble attempt. So, Yash is another co-conspirator. He's the previous speaker, and he's in the audience. If you have lots of questions, ask him. If technical questions, ask me. So this is the idea. The idea is like, can you actually help people who, the literal way of describing it, know zero about zero knowledge, to be able to provide protocols which can actually use zero knowledge to a degree that, the risk is reduced. The way I describe this is like Microsoft Windows before antivirus and after antivirus, right? Even if the antivirus is like 90%, you have a threat reduction by 90%. So even if our solution is not going to give you like 100% answer, that definitely is going to reduce the total number of protocols that has massive security holes significantly. So the idea is like, when the user comes in, they interact with an LLM. Initial LLM is me, okay? So then we have to train the LLM with the data we have. And then what happens is like, we will have a visual representation. So if you are somebody who understands the protocol, you could actually go to the DSL and do things directly. And then you do the verification, so you know that this is, at least to the degree, working, right? Okay, so standard stuff, what's in there? What's in the jar in that sense? So essentially, normal stuff. We might add or remove things. Snarks, of course, Starks, right. Okay, people who are very Stark-flavored, apologies, my fault, I'm a bit Snark-flavored. Okay, if we get enough of requests, we will put Starks too. So, we want to do bits of formal proofs and absolutely want to use mechanisms, right? Because like, if it's decentralized, the only way you're going to achieve the results you want is going to have mechanism design and actually using cryptographics. Right, so here we are. So the thing is like, I said to you before, like LLM being used to do zero-day. So this is our test run, so we made this up. Don't challenge me in any of these bits, okay? It's a bit that works. We will definitely connect up all the backend to the degree that everything will be fully verified, but it's verified right now. Let me see if it runs. Okay, there you go. I asked it to do a zero-day, okay? Look at this. It's going through all the commitments, go to the CK bit. And if you're going to ask me, how am I going to know if it's a vulnerability or not, I'm assuming this to be a multi-dimensional matrix, and I'm looking for distances, okay? If it's known to be closer to any of the known vulnerabilities, we have databases of vulnerabilities, both from NIST and CVE. If it's close enough, we say no. So he says no, okay? And just to test that this works, when it's asked the right question, we put the obvious one in. I don't think he's here. Good, thank God. Okay, I asked the question. I can either put my name or I can put Vitalik's name. So I asked the question, and see, it goes through. It actually gets to the LLM. So the TE is in, the LLM is inside a TE container, right? Just to make sure that we can have some attestation of whatever characteristics it has. So it will actually go there. It will get a query, and it's Shifty Jack. There you go. Okay. Start getting the answers there. Pumps it back over here. Off you go. So it works. Okay. So at least in theory, for the condition, I know this is kind of primitive, but we definitely need to do a lot more to make it verifiable in that sense, and provide proof to people that if you put in something, it'll completely stop. And we also did like an identity scheme. I saw so many people doing this. So we had somebody who was working with us. The founder actually has this thing called on-chain city. The conversation was like, how do we do one of these things? And this was like the funny bit. I mean, like a simple example. So I did growth by hand on Circom, and I showed her that. And then I wanted to just show her how easy it is to actually do this with this thing. So, okay. So run the pipeline. Okay, again, there's a bit of a looseness in this whole equation, so you have to forgive me. This is not one-to-one map to my growth Circom circuit with growth 16, but like I put in a number which was 25. It checks against 18. So the circuit has two inputs, one output. One is 18. The other one is whatever you put in. In my circuit, I put a static input of 25. Given 25 is higher than 18, it gets a yes, and so the rest of it gives you a result. Okay. Okay, I should be done now. And that's it. Thank you very much.